I'm Andy, I'm 19 years old. I'm here to enrol to vote, enrol to be on the electoral roll. Yeah.
Like many of the other people lined up outside the Australian Electoral Commission on Monday afternoon, Andy made it just in time. This year, if you weren't on the electoral roll before Gillard called the election, you had just one business day to sort yourself out and get enrolled to vote.
Well, yeah, I just kept getting letters saying, it's time to enroll to vote, and I kind of just put it off. And then my friend Eric told me that today was the last day I could enroll, and I found out it was 8 o'clock was the last time that I could enroll, and I was working, and I had to kind of figure everything out how I could get here and enroll to vote. Yeah.
And you made it somehow.
I somehow made it. Luckily, I work in the city.
Andy's right, it is actually pretty lucky. But it wasn't always so hard for young guys like him to get onto the electoral rolls. Let's have a bit of a look at how it all came to this. In 1984, the Hawke government introduced a law that caused the electoral rolls to remain open for 7 days after the writs for an election were issued. That's the process by which the actual calling of an election is made formal. Now, prior to this, common practice was for governments to wait 1 week before issuing the writs. In 2007, during John Howard's final term as Prime Minister, those laws were thrown out the window against advice from the Australian Electoral Commission. It's under those laws that for election 2010, you had just 12 hours to get your name on the electoral roll if you weren't already on it. Dr. Andrew Scott is a senior lecturer in global studies at RMIT and is pretty sceptical about why governments have actually kept these laws in place.
Well, the Howard government, which did it during its last term of office, said it was to prevent any fraud that might occur if, after an election was announced, people would try and increase their prospects in certain elections. Candidates maybe would stack, people would move residences, whatever. However, that's generally regarded as a rather spurious reason, and many believe that the reason that the Howard Liberal and National Party government brought it in was because voters who weren't on the rolls were more likely to vote for Labor and the Greens, particularly young voters.
Looking at the faces lined up outside Melbourne's main AEC office, you can see that Andy shares at least one thing with most of them: his age. More than 1.4 million Australians are missing from the electoral roll, with younger people making up the majority of that figure. So why would a government make it harder for young Australians to get onto the electoral roll?
I think there is political advantage for some parties in minimising youth enrolment, and there's political advantage for other parties in maximising it.
And that's exactly why guys like Andy were out in the cold lining up on Monday afternoon.
Also, I just think, people like the two parties or the government aren't going to really start listening to the youth unless the youth, take part in the in this whole thing as well, and I guess I'm just doing my bit for that, to get myself heard.